And it's actually really related to the next talk that we have coming. We have Dave Chae. He is the executive director at Connect Silicon Valley and chief executive advisor at AI Blockchain, a high-tech company in Hoboken, New Jersey. A former lead pastor of several churches and CEO of his nonprofit, Dave grew his first faith community, GRX, from 2001 to 2011 in Sunnyvale, taking 13 people in his living room to 750 people in 3 years. In addition, he planted 5 faith communities in a span of 10 years, built a road in Thailand, and established an orphanage in Kenya. Dave Chae, take it away.
All right. Hi. Well, thanks for having me. And Douglas, thank you for your talk. I caught the tail end of it, and it's as if we could have given the same talk. That was really encouraging. And there's no doubt that we need to view church differently, right? I mean, Sunday is a worship service, right? We call it church, but it's a worship service. You get 4 songs in the front end, you get a 35-minute message, and you get a song at the back end. Hopefully that song matches the theme, right? Because we got to make sure we got a tight program, right? So today, what I'd like to talk to you guys about is essentially, I guess what people have been throwing around, like church 2.0, church without walls, inverted church, kind of very similar. And I wanted to kind of break it down in a simple way, this way, basically to, how to share your faith in life and at work without being awkward, without being weird, and without being religious. And so really it's kind of a how-to apart from the institutional church. Like if we lived a certain way, could we behave and be like the church? And of course, I totally believe that we can. So I just need a logistical help here. If I just kind of put this on the screen, do I need to share the screen, or how does that work, Nick? So just flip it up there, like people can see that? Is that how it works? Can you guys all see that or no? No, what do I do? Do I just share screen?
Yeah.
All right, okay, gotcha. All right, so share screen. Boom. All right. Excellent. Thanks, guys. This is what I normally do. I just wasn't sure if we had like a special arrangement. So hopefully you guys can see all that. Faith, life, and work without being awkward, religious, or weird. And I think we've been all 3 when we try to sometimes share our faith. Quick introduction. I came to faith very late, 26. I'm 58. I don't use any hair greasing formula. People say, dude, like you probably use don't you use stuff on your hair? No, man, it's all natural. So father of 3, husband of 1, currently working at a nonprofit over at Connect Silicon Valley. And then prior to that, I was a pastor, and just learning so much about how to do church and how not to do church. And as I was doing that, I learned a few things that it's real challenging to share our faith. It's challenging because you're scared. You're afraid of rejection. You feel like only a gifted few have the gift of evangelism, and so we don't do it ourselves. We feel like it's really for extroverts, people who really love around people and that energy. And I think these are all myths, by the way, or that I don't have enough Bible knowledge. Like, hey, what if they ask me a question I don't know? I don't want that. I don't want to be embarrassed. So this is why I don't share my faith. And, the professionals are so much better at it. They tell better stories. They're good speakers. They're professionally trained. Like, why don't we let them do that? And on top of that, it's really not that big of a deal. Really, like, you want me to share my faith as if that's going to make a difference. I've got other things going on in my life. It's just not a priority. And then finally, I learned that, many of us don't have non-Christian friends. We don't hang out with people that are different in faith. And so as a result, we don't end up exercising our faith. So I think we can probably all relate to that. And really, like, how do we break that barrier? How do we get to a place where we can truly live out the life of the church? And I would say it's very similar to how we learn things, right? We learn things by habit, by repetition. Like learning a musical instrument, getting good at spiritual conversations with those who believe differently from you is an art that takes practice. I would say more than anything, not more knowledge of theology or a certain skill. I just think it just do it. This takes practice to actually share our faith. And after a while, just like anything else, it becomes part of who you are, and it's more natural. What's our
Hey,
role when we
Dave,
share our faith?
can you hit present real quick? It might be easier to see the screen.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it'll come back. It just takes a couple seconds. Here we go. You guys see it? You guys see it? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Is the camera on me? Can you see front, or do I have to look over here? You guys are good this way? Okay. Yeah. So like learning a musical instrument, getting good at spiritual conversations with those who believe. I mean, it really comes down to practice. But you might wonder, okay, what's our role? God's role? You know, we plant and water, but God makes it grow. Right. I think this is one of the challenges that we feel like, man, it's so much a burden. Like we got to close a deal, we got to convert. So, well, the Bible is very clear. You know what? We don't do any converting. God does that. So I like to try to tell people, you know, we're the caregivers, but God is a cure giver. Right? You see how that's helpful? Like we're the caregivers, but God is a cure giver. And when we have that mindset, we just kind of release the burden of converting anybody. We let that to the Lord. But then you know what? We can care. You know, we can plant and we can water. So who are we talking about? Who do we actually share our faith with? I would suggest that, you know, it's nothing more than the people right around us. You know, we live in appointed times in history, and the region where we live is exactly where we need to be. This is so that we can interact with real people who want to know God. So those of you who are thinking, oh, wait, isn't that in the Bible? It actually is. It's actually in Acts chapter 17, that we are placed exactly where God wants us. The land and the boundaries and the neighbors that we know is because so that we can actually share our faith, so that they would seek after God and they would find God. And so it's really kind of biblically based that the very people around us have been placed around us intentionally by God. And who are we talking about? We're talking about the 8 to 15 people who are the natural context that you have in your life, the hairdressers, you know, your mechanic, your barista, the tailor, cashier at Safeway, your dentist. And so rather than thinking I've got to go to, you know, Kenya, or I've got to go to Eastern Europe to kind of minister to people, I say, like, there are people right where you are that you can minister to. So I really want to encourage you guys to just kind of look around you. You know, the people are there. Well, how do we actually do this? Okay, so I've got a hairdresser, I've got a mechanic that I know. What exactly should we be doing so that we can be the church and do it in a way that is not awkward or weird or religious in any way? And the first I would say is just trust your relationships, right? Trust your relationships, that what you've invested in that person in terms of love and familiarity, you know, doing hobbies together, playing sports, and, you know, having coffee, like there's something there. I try to encourage people, say, look, you have one thing, as a pastor, I would say, you know, you have one thing with your friends and neighbors that I'll never have. You have one thing that you've built up over all these years that I just can't even come close, and that's relational equity. You have invested in these folks. They trust you. When they hear your voice, they trust you. So why not learn how to leverage that to have spiritual conversations, to love them and care for them, rather than feeling like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to default. I'm just going to bring my friend to church and let the pastor do the job. You know, we'll go Christmas and Easter. I said, no, wait a minute. Like, you have something that I don't have with your friends. You have relational equity. And what is it about relational equity? What in that relationship, what's going on in the other person's mind as you're sharing relations? Well, you know what? It's very godly. It's like a huge blessing to be in relationship. And here's a quote from Henry Cloud's book, The Power of the Other. He says this: when you are in a right relationship with someone you respect, love, and enjoy being around, your brain reorders itself so that you can connect better with others, empathize with others, and develop intellectually and physically. Healthy relationships wires your brains for a host of functions, such as the ability to regulate your own emotions, solve problems, deal with stress, and be resilient. Business leaders, athletes, and other high performers build their brain equipment through relationships. This is in Henry Cloud's book. I strongly recommend it if you don't already have a copy of this book, The Power of the Other. Great book in terms of you know, how to love on people and how to have great relationships. I would say a second way to really minister to others and be in someone's life, just intentional prayer. What I mean by that is just, offering it up to anyone, not just your closest of friends, and just letting God work. I've shared with some of you before, and I'll share again. For a while, every Wednesday afternoon after lunch, my friend and I would just go to the local mall, and we would just walk around, and we would just pray. We said, God, just introduce us to people that are hurting, that could use some prayer, and we're your servants, and we're here. And so we would intentionally just pray that prayer. And sure enough, on that day, as my friend and I would be walking toward the security officer, she was like in her late 20s, kind of leaning back on the wall. And I just kind of introduced myself as, my name is Dave. I'm a follower of Christ, and we love to pray for people. Could we pray for you? And she kind of looks at me like, how did you know? How did you know that I needed prayer? I said, well, actually, we don't know. We're just kind of walking around, and we went off for prayer. And she goes, oh my goodness, I've been leaning up against this wall because last night I lost my fiance to a car accident. And we have a 2-year-old. We're not married. We have a 2-year-old. And I've been wondering, like, what am I going to do with my life? Now that my fiance's passed. And so right then and there, my friend and I just kind of got around her and just loved on her, prayed for her and said, no, God's going to take care of you. He's a good and wonderful God. And if you want to come to our church, it's here and there. And she just felt like, wow, man, it's at night. I can't do it because I work here at the mall. But it was just that special moment as a result of, intentional prayer, not only kind of preparatory prayer, but also offering prayer, right? I mean, what's the worst that people can say? I'm not interested. Hey, you move on, right? But that's the worst they can say. But what if they actually say, wait a minute, yeah, I could use some prayer, right? Why not? Why not be the hands and feet of Christ at that moment? So I would say a second great way that we can touch lives is just pray for them, pray for them through intentional prayer. Another would be to do causes together, right? These organizations that are listed there, these are organizations that just really have a passion to serve their community. I think of BVT, Bay Valley Tech, and the CEO there is his passion is economic development. He just thinks that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, and Bay Area especially. And his cause is that he wants to teach underprivileged 18-year-olds how to code, and he teaches them in 7 months. So the time it takes to learn how to cut hair, he can teach you how to code. And the hope is that as you learn this incredibly valuable skill, that you would graduate from his school, and then you'd be a software program, right? In the Bay Area, I mean, that can yield up to a 6-figure salary. Modesto maybe 70, 80K. Well, he's hoping, like, what if we had 1,000 coders, right? That we trained, and then they stayed in that same area for 20 years, right? I mean, we do the math. I mean, you're talking about billions of income thrown into that city, and he's thinking East Palo Alto, by the way. And that would just change the tide, right? I mean, that would be a game changer. So now you've got these underprivileged 18-year-olds who otherwise wouldn't have gone to college, wouldn't have kind of made the living that they would desire. All of a sudden, like, wait a minute, I can do this. Well, that changes an entire city. Like, why not partner with a group like that? And as you do, people are going to wonder, why would you do that? Like, these are nobodies. These are underprivileged 18s. Well, why do you do that? Well, we do because we're followers of Christ. And so when the people see that you're doing good, they do wonder, like, why you do what you do when it's not for you, right? So doing causes together, I think, is a huge way, a significant way that you could be a blessing in the lives of others. The last one is a simple one, doing life together. And some of us on the call, we understand this. I'm a huge bocce ball guy. I just picked it up recently, and I do it with, these older Italian men. I mean, they're probably like, 10, 15 years away from dying, but I love the game and I do it with them, and it's just very natural. And, it's not like everybody's been converted or everybody knows Christ, but man, I have a great relationship with these guys, and I love playing bocce ball as well as other sports. But to do it with other people that love it, you just develop these relationships, and then in due time, God will give you a little opening. And you'll get to share your faith, and you'll get to, touch their lives with prayer. One gal, she's probably in her mid to late 70s. As we're kind of interacting and hanging out, getting to know each other, she let me know that her whole life, that she's been struggling with depression and anxiety. And, when she was younger, they didn't have any medicine for stuff like that. So she just endured it. And it was so hard, she's been married and divorced 4 times. So she is on the bocce ball court, just playing some ball. And, we kind of developed this relationship over these months. And she kind of shared that she really, really struggles with depression, anxiety. So right then and there, I just offered prayer. I just said, hey, I would love to pray for you. Thank you for sharing that. And she goes, man, that would be great. And we prayed, and power of God to heal kind of took place. And, a week later, she came back to me and said, Dave, you're not gonna believe this, but I'm not depressed anymore. I'm not anxious anymore. Like, thank you so much for praying. And, and that came out of just doing life together, playing a simple sport like bocce ball, and kind of allowing God to work naturally, but me being intentional about, offering prayer. So these are 3 simple ways that I believe that we can share our faith without being awkward, without being religious or weird. And my hope is that you wouldn't just appreciate the points, but that you would actually go out and do this. Like, you don't need permission from the church. You don't need someone to give you an NDiv or, say, hey, are you a churchgoer? Are you like an elder? Should you be doing this? So no, as long as like you have the Holy Spirit in you, you are a follower of God, like you can do this, right? You can do intentional prayer, right? You can party with other people and do causes together, and you can do life together. And as you do, you're going to find that God naturally works through your life, and you're going to be so blessed, so encouraged that that God will use you in this manner. And this is what it means to be the church. Like, this is literally what it means to be a church. And it's great to have what you have on Sunday and the structure that you go to, but that's not necessary for you to do and be like this. So that's the word I have for you today. Thanks for your time, and it's good to be with you guys.
Thank you, Dave. Great talk. You have such a heart to love people, and it just exudes. It just comes out of you, and you can see all the testimonies that are taking place in your life. Really awesome to hear.